Sitting here, I am thinking about change and the rhythm of change and how it is that we met exactly 10 years ago, or we started working together exactly 10 years ago. And it was work that was inspired by change. Who could have imagined?
That's the thing. Who could have imagined? I never thought that I would live through so many momentous moments. I was born a little too young to participate in anything like the hippie revolution, and I just kind of watched my older siblings and cousins and stuff do that. And so I always thought, well, we got through that one, and then there was Watergate. I said, okay, now we're set. And I never thought that there would be so many, as you said, just key moments, things where you turn and you see things differently. How do we step up to the plate for this one? How do you step up into that change and become a part of it and implement it?
That's right. And I think I always somehow assumed that one saw change coming, that that's how history worked, that you saw the big moment coming. It turns out you don't. You're just going about your business and the world shuts down.
And the world shuts down. And what you remember from those moments, when it does catch up with you or overwhelm you, are the little things that you were doing at that moment. Because, as you say, you're just going through life. You're just doing your daily stuff. It's small. It seems petty, but that's what you remember.
And it's funny that you talk about that because I have been thinking so much about the smallness of things, the smallness of our daily lives and what we remember and what we do. And there are these words of yours, you know this, there are these words from Testimonial that I've been carrying with me for the last 10 years. I have interpreted them so much to be about the small things. Actually, I would love to ask you to read the poem because I think that I've had 10 years of interpreting this poem in so many ways, and it's actually your poem. And I want to know what you think about it.
Testimonial. Back when the earth was new and heaven just a whisper. Back when the names of things hadn't had time to stick. Back when the smallest breezes melted summer into autumn, when all the poplars quivered sweetly in rank and file. The world called, and I answered. Each glance ignited to a gaze. I caught my breath and called that life, swooned between spoonfuls of lemon sorbet. I was pirouette and flourish, I was filigree and flame. How could I count my blessings when I didn't know their names? Back when everything was still to come, luck leaked out everywhere. I gave my promise to the world, and the world followed me here.
So it's funny hearing you read those words today. What they're reminding me of is President Biden's speech at the inauguration about, all of us kind of stepping up and harnessing our power to come together, to pull our country up, to pull ourselves forward. But tell me what you experience when you read those words right now, right here.
I remember I wrote that poem at a point where I turned and looked back at my life. At that time, I had just been poet laureate. I was thinking I had never imagined that this would happen, but I had given this promise that I was going to do my best, and if the world called, I would answer it, and there it was. Now reading it, I'm also thinking that this pertains to everyone, not just to my particular personal moment, that you can't know what your blessings are. You don't know how to call them by name. It comes to you afterwards, that there are times in life where you have a before and an after, a time when you don't know the names of things. And then suddenly you do. You turn around and you say, that's what that was.
I've been taking those words of yours to young people now for 10 years all around the country. And, for me, what I'm sharing with them is you have a promise. Maybe you don't know what it is, but it's there. And it's been so enlarging for me to do that work and to remind myself, because every time I'm with the kids, I'm reminding myself as well. The reason that I'm there in those rooms with those kids is because I believe that the way to find your promise is through your imagination. And I think that one of the ways into your imagination is through music. That's why that's why I give my promise. That's where I give my life. And I know that that has been the case for you too. And music was, I think, one of your important gateways into your imagination and your creativity. You started playing cello when you were how old?
I was 10 when I started playing cello. It was part of those wonderful music in the schools programs that they used to have everywhere, where everyone would play the little tonette, and then they'd ask you the next year they'd ask you if you'd like to do an instrument. So that's how I entered it. And cello sounded so good. Now, that should have been a clue, and now I can look back and say, oh yeah, I love words too, but it sounded so good that I just said I want to play that one before I even saw it. And then I saw it, and I thought, oh gee. But of course I was too proud to admit my mistake. And it was perfect though. I mean, I love that instrument because I could wrap myself around the sound. I think that for me a poem has to sing in some way. Words fail us. It's maybe one of the reasons why I became a poet, because I thought we use these every day, but it's essential that they not fail us. So in a poem, what I'm also trying to do is to build in it's almost like composing. I'm making musical phrases. I'm trying to coach the reader into how to breathe along with the poem and follow the arcs and the dips and the valleys so that the words are amplified by the music beneath them.
I think that anyone who's a musician cannot avoid these rhythms and these cadences. When I write something, forget about poetry, just whenever I write anything, I do these fairly annoying things that have to do with repetition and phrasing. And I have this little tick of repeating a turn of phrase, because to me it makes sense, because that's what you would do in a sonata. You would come back.
It is true that we love it when something is repeated and we see it in a different light. It's sort of like taking a prism and going, you see it here, then you turn, the sun strikes it, and he goes, ooh, now I see, a different angle of it.
We know you never play the same phrase the same way twice. One must not.
Absolutely, one must not. One must not.
I saw a recent collaboration that you did out here in California where you read the first poem from your book, Sonata Mulatica, to introduce a performance of the Kreutzer Sonata. That's a collection of poems about this violinist named George Bridgetower, who was of mixed race, whose life intersected with Beethoven, and to whom Beethoven dedicated his famous sonata that we know as the Kreutzer Sonata for complicated reasons. But your book is about, it's about that relationship and about that music, but it's also about memory and the stories that get chosen to remain and the stories that disappear.
This story was, until very recently, a lost one, or a buried one, a muted one, perhaps we could say. I was fascinated by it for a number of reasons. First of all, because I am and will always be in my heart a musician, so this story fascinated me. And because also I am really, really wedded to, I guess you could say obsessed by the idea of everyone's story being important, and so those that get lost are my passion and my cause. And the more I dipped into this story, the more other things also began to come out. The fact that that Bridgetower, who did premiere the Kreutzer Sonata, what is now called the Kreutzer Sonata, that he was a very extravagant player, and that very possibly Beethoven, who was going deaf at the time, read him, finding ways to communicate and connect by engaging other senses, as Beethoven had to do at that time, to talk without saying anything.
That's one thing that's changed. The attention that we are giving, the effort that we are making now to uncover these stories. And certainly I've been immersed in that. And for so many reasons, I think like you, I just feel that all of the stories are so important, but it's also my truth. It's also my truth to know these stories. And it's about seeing yourself in history. I could never see myself reflected in this history, but I'm making damn sure that everything I'm doing now will be seen by the next generation of little brown girls. It's so
Yes.
important to see yourself.
It is important because then if you can see yourself, you also realize you can make a difference. And I felt that way too. As I was growing up, I was writing poetry. I'm thinking, poet, can I have the luxury of being a poet? How do I contribute in any way to the protests or to something, march for Black Lives Matter? And I realized that every one of us, whatever we do, when we can allow our souls to shine or find a way to let them shine through, that is a confirmation of the worth of every human.
I will tell you for sure, those words of yours that I carry with me, this commitment to remembering every day about my promise, it has changed my life. It has changed the work that I do.
It's a long time coming. Things are always a long time coming. It's a continual coming of things. And you just hope that we can keep that change going. I mean, sometimes people feel that change is an indication that we are, that we've been remiss and that it's a scolding. They think of it as a scolding. I think of change as an absolutely exhilarating thing. This means that we are still becoming, we are still engaged.
It means we're still here. It just means we're here. Change is going to come.
Change is going to come, and we just got to be with it. Got to be ready to get on that train and go.